All right, we're here live all over the country. I'm on the East Coast, MKJ and Peter on the West Coast. Welcome to the latest of our Relatable series, How to Create Demand for Your Product or Service. I'm Jim Fuse. I'm the affiliate manager for Relatable, and I'm here with Peter, our founder, and Mary Catherine Johnson, who is our partnership program manager, and I think also the chief marketing officer, I think sometimes.
I just do stuff.
She does stuff. So great to see you all. And so, Peter, tell us what's going on with you today.
What's going on with me? Well, that's an open-ended question. There's a lot going on with me. Do you want business or personal? I'm just kidding. Well, I just, in this digital series, it was just I was thinking about, because it's about creating demand, right, Jim? And so in our world of how we do things these days, and we're going to talk about lead gen versus demand gen. We touched on that a little bit, and we're going to talk about Relatable and the new relationship economy that is upon us now and how Relatable fits with that. But I think, one of the first things to go through and talk about today for everybody that's on here is I want you guys to really think about, for right now, forget about your wanting to, get customers and wanting to, convert get potential buyers and convert them into customers. What I want you to think about first is, how do you go about buying? So if you think about it, if it's not an impulse buy, like at the grocery store, like a candy bar or an energy drink or a pack of gum, anything that we're buying of any significance, even SaaS products like ours, what do we all do first? We go out and do research online. Okay. We don't immediately pick up the phone and say, hey, I want to talk to a salesperson. Or we don't go dive into our inbox and read a whole bunch of emails. We want to go out and do our own research and do our own analysis and find out what are the options and choices. So in a demand gen world, we go through awareness, consideration, or to develop curiosity, like Mary says. And then when we are ready, then we're in that demand ready or demand capture, where at that time we may want to talk to a salesperson. Although, I don't know if I mentioned this last week to you guys, but Gartner did a study I think it was 2023, last year. And Gartners are respected. They spend a lot of money on these studies. And what they found out is that nearly 75% of all people now, including all you people listening, including me, including Jim, including Mary, want a seller-free or rep-free experience. And this is even for enterprise software that's $500,000 or up. They want to do their own research and buy online without any involvement from a salesperson. Now, if you guys know salespeople, ask them how tough it is for them out there in the market today with cold calling and lead gen and trying to, convince people to come into their buying process. So that's the first thing I wanted to bring up, Jim, is before we start this whole how do you create demand, and I'm hoping we can pack all this into an hour today, is really, guys, if you're going to have a business and you're going to want to get traction and attract potential buyers, you got to put yourself in your own shoes, not in their shoes. Think about how you buy. That's exactly how your buyers are buying. And so you got to match that. So that's how I kind of want to start it out.
Yeah. And I think too, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning here. My friend Mark Schaefer posted, and I know Mary Catherine was in a book that he created. Somebody actually DM'd him today asking him if if he needed help writing a book so he'd get on big stages, and so that's the whole problem, is we're getting spammed in LinkedIn and probably on other, even in our email to an extent. And you talked about it too before the show, Peter, about even our cell phones have become this treasure trove of stuff we didn't ask for, whether it's unwanted text, unwanted calls, robocalls. And so, that's not demand. That's, I don't even know what to call that. That's called, I guess, spam, right? So I think that's where I think that is interesting. And I think to your point, other than when you go in a physical store, but then you get frustrated because you know what you want and you ask the person and they really aren't educated on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's my frustration.
Yeah. But it's a, so Mark's post, basically it's laziness. It's automating things that don't need to be automated. Just because we can automate outreach doesn't mean we should. Right? It's the whole Jurassic Park, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
In that, and especially with relationships and sales, all we're doing is switching that automation from once we got the internet, funnels and emails and texts, now to DMs and sales calls or discovery calls or get to know you calls.
Or email marketing where you get
Email
pounded.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean
Hey.
you shouldn't automate everything. It really is just going to hurt, like Mark said, and like we've said before, it's going to hurt your reputation. It's going to hurt your brand. When you hire people to represent your brand, and this is what they do, they automate DMs and they say the wrong things. We're going to remember that because we buy, like you said, Peter, the same as our customers do.
Yeah, we certainly do. And you also have to know, that was a great point, Jim, you brought up, about, and Mary, about, Mark being pitched how to write a book. I have been, and I'm not trying to say this, guys. If you guys have gone to my profile, I mean, I've run divisions for small companies like Nike, Hewlett Packard, Verifone. I don't do that anymore because I got tired of running around the world. So this is my fourth startup. But I'm not, guys. I had a 20-something approach me and pitch me in the DMs on LinkedIn who wanted to be my business coach on how to grow my business. I mean, you got to know your lane. It's like if someone that had seasoned experience and things, yeah, I might want to consider that. But I'm not knocking 20-somethings, but I remember when I was 20-something and I was just starting as an engineer and I didn't have a lot of life experience, let alone leadership coaching or management experience. So this is, part of the problem we have today with the digital space is because it's so accessible and so easy. Everybody can hang out their sign and go, I'm an expert at this. I'm an expert coach. I'm an expert, whatever, when really you're not. So, again, in addition to, put yourself in your own shoes. Also, we all know that we're getting pounded by a lot of this stuff. And this is the reason why, I guess the point I'm making is it's really all about generating leads. And guys, you will see, and again, we're going to talk about omni-channel. And we have to live this too here at Relatable. It's not just about being on LinkedIn. It's about having a great website. It's about having other managed channels like LinkedIn. It's about having third-party channels, like blog posts and influencers and others that can help you too grow your at podcast shows like Mary does and Jim does, right? These are all third-party channels. We'll get into that in a later, in the next digital series. We're going to get into that in a lot of detail there. But from a lead gen standpoint, guys, you will see them, spot them a mile away. And this is what I call part of the status quo. So lead gen, we define it as push marketing. It's not pull marketing. And what will happen in there is you'll see posts and they'll talk about how to do this, how to do that. Or they will do some kind of a post and they will ask you to join for their newsletter, which for the life of me, I mean, I know people consume content in different ways. There's reading, there's listening, and there's watching. But there's a lot of studies that show now that everybody's reading or everybody's watching or listening. They're not doing a lot of reading. This is why podcasts are so big. This is why video is so big. In fact, there was a statistic that I saw. I think it was Sprout or Social or something like that. The last 5 years, video consumption has grown 150%. Blog posts have grown 17%. And you guys know a lot of the native digitals, they use that term TLDR, too long, didn't read, right? So this is what's happening. I'm just, speaking, it's self-evident stuff. And a lot of you guys, if you're listening to this, I hope you're shaking your head going, yeah, that's true, because it is. So going back to lead gen, it's a push marketing thing. Now, lead gen, what happens is they'll send you to an email list. And then what do? Then they start sending you emails, right? email after email after email, trying to persuade and convince you. Okay. And I've said this before, I have a lot of years in neuroscience brain research. I could persuade people to buy. I can produce dopamine. I could produce oxytocin, which is the relationship love hormone, in an email, but I can't build a relationship in email. You just can't do that, right? You have to be just like here, right? You guys are all watching us, and hopefully, you can contribute in the chat. If you do, I don't know, Jim, do we have a chat where you can see a chat?
We do. If they're on LinkedIn, they can comment. Same with YouTube, and even if you're watching us on replay, we can still respond back to you after the show.
Perfect. So if you have thoughts about this, or you have your comments and things like that, or you agree or disagree with me, look, I tell people all the time. In fact, I just wrote a post about this the other day. We're going to get into creating your unique point of view. If you don't have haters, you're not innovative enough and you're not unique enough. So if some of you guys are hating what I'm saying, that's okay. We're not here for everybody. But lead gen, that's what happens. Or they'll say, hey, DM me. They'll get you in the DMs, and then they'll try to get you on an appointment, and then they'll go into a sales close. Okay. So what lead generators are doing is they're looking, there's 5%. This is a Gartner study too. 5% are in the market ready to buy at any given time. Okay. But then you have to sit back and go, well, wait a second. If, Peter talked about the way I buy, I do research. That's the way my customers buy. That's how this other 95% is doing it. They're not ready to buy yet. Right. So they want information. They want first to become aware, and then they want to go through their considerations. Okay. So if you look at email and you look at funnels and all these kinds of things that were created, like Mary and Jim said, these were created because, and I'm a tech guy, tech people created this stuff because it made it easy to get out to the masses, play the numbers game, and hope a few fall out at the end. That's the 5%. But you're really shooting yourself in the foot if you're not also thinking about the 95%, right? And the one point I want to bring up about lead gen is this. This is the hugest difference between lead gen and demand gen. And that is this. When you are in lead gen, you are inviting that particular potential buyer into your sales process to try to convince them to buy now. Okay? Now, for all you people, if you're listening to this and you're salespeople out there, I'd love to hear your comments. How are things going for you lately these days? Because I've talked to a lot of salespeople and they're having a tough time. And then the problem is there's also studies from Gartner that shows when we go into recessionary times, that 5% goes down to about 1%. So now 99% of the people are not ready to buy, only 1% is. And this is what happens, right? When things go wrong and revenue starts dipping, companies start panicking because it's like, oh my God, we got to get more leads. The salespeople start screaming to marketing, more leads, more leads, more leads. Well, okay, you can get more leads, but what is the quality of those leads, right? So this is lead gen. I mean, this is the classic lead gen. So just if you remember anything about lead gen is you are inviting them into your sales process to try to convince them to buy now. Now, we're going to talk about demand gen. Do you guys have any comments on that at all?
Yeah. My only comment on that is that it doesn't mean that we are saying you're never going to participate in lead generation. It means that if you're putting all your eggs in the lead gen basket, you will find yourself, as Peter has talked about many times, on that hamster wheel, on that numbers game, on that constantly trying to, like he said, get more leads, because that's really how your whole marketing strategy is based on that. So it doesn't mean we never generate leads or never have any kind of lead generation tactics. And we'll talk about this later, but it means that's a small portion of our overall marketing strategy, which is what Peter's going to talk about next, which is demand generation. And instead of inviting people into our sales process, I'll turn it back to you or Jim, if you have another thought about lead gen. What demand gen does is a completely different mindset shift.
Well, I think the comment I would add, and this kind of goes back to what Peter's talking about, is, I know folks, and I may offend them, and that's okay according to Peter. It's
You
cold
offended me
calling,
many
right?
times, Jim.
Right? It's cold calling, right? I
Yeah.
don't answer cold calls.
Yeah.
Or even with email marketing, people say, "Oh, well, we'll just use a nice round number like 1,000." I sent out 1,000 emails. I had 250 people open it, and I had 5 people maybe actually respond.
Yeah.
So that's considered success.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're kind of missing the point of we're spending a lot of effort to get a very small number instead of figuring out, like, if I go out, in a sense, build that relationship one at a time and not expect the sale to happen right away, right? Because they got to get to know me. They got to make sure this is what works for me. I'm eventually going to get that sale, right? It's even the whole idea. Like when I do remote production, I don't sit there and tell people like, "Hey, do you need someone to help you, do a podcast or whatever?" It's like, this is what I do. Eventually they start to check you out, and then it'll be like, I've been watching you for a while. Now I'm ready, right? We're ready when we are ready, not when, if you want to call it the customer, we think we want them to be ready. And I think that's part of the big challenge.
That's huge, Jim. And that's the point I was making is that's where the shift has to happen. And here's the thing, guys, too. We promise you, this is about the first part of lead gen, demand gen, and then we're going to talk about how do you start in this top part about, creating demand awareness. Okay.
Mhm.
Because our whole series, it's called Future Proof Your Business, right? So when we get down, probably 2 digital series in about 4 weeks, we are going to talk about what Mary talked about, which is, okay, now I'm here, I'm doing lead gen. How the heck do I get over to demand gen? I can't just turn the light switch off on lead gen, right? So we're going to give you some tips and strategies on how you hybrid it, right? So you can do both and move yourself over to the demand gen. Because here's the thing, in a relationship economy, that all the lead gen, that's called attention economy. Attention, attention, attention. Grab attention, grab attention. We got to get these people's attention, right? And what do we do? You see it in social, right? No matter what you're on. In the attention economy, it's about, and you can see a lot of these influencers who it's whoever is yelling the loudest and the most often, and they just are posting, repost this, repost that. They're just doing it because they're on the hamster wheel, like Mary said, and they can't get off. And Mary, before we get off into the demand gen, I want to talk about, because I've heard this from many times. You used to be a agency owner, and you're not anymore. Can you talk to that and about some of the agency owners that you know?
Yeah, it's
I guess.
yeah, so I was an agency owner, a successful agency owner. I helped many clients make lots of money and grow their influence and their product base and their communities and memberships and all of that. The issue is exactly what we've been talking about. Constantly looking for new people, new leads. Where are we getting them? And then once we get those new leads, how are we, quote, nurturing them, which is what I wanted to do. How are we nurturing them to get them to a sale? So nurturing, you nurture a child. A child doesn't become an adult overnight. So when you talk about the word nurturing, it's not a one-time situation, one message, one outreach situation. That's not nurturing. That's sending a one-way message. That's all it is. But the reason I left the agency was twofold. Number one, I was tired of that hamster wheel of, not just for my business, because my business was relationship based, but I was tired of the hamster wheel for my clients. If I couldn't get my clients to do business the way I was doing it, which I couldn't, they came to me with the product or the service that I provided, which was chatbots. They came to me because they'd heard chatbots make money faster and more money. And so that's all that was important. And so to try and get them to shift that idea from immediate, reliance on that immediate sale to building a relationship and actually nurturing people, because through a chatbot, you can give information just like email. But again, you can do some videos, but you can't do nothing like Relatable can. I just got tired of it. I just got tired and burnt out of it. And why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep trying to provide something that, number one, I don't agree with, and I don't buy that way. I don't go into people's funnels and try and buy and go down to their funnels and take the OTO, the one-time offer, or the upsell or the downsell. I don't buy that way. Why do I create communications that promote that?
Right. No, that's, and see, and you heard some key words from Mary there, which is, I got burned out. And I have heard this from many, many people who are on the hamster wheel of lead gen, whether it's salespeople, agency owners, coaches. They just get burned out because you're always chasing the next lead, the next lead, the next lead, right? So now we're going to move over. We're 20 minutes in. I want to talk about demand gen in this relationship economy. So demand gen now is what we call a pull type marketing. And here's the key thing about demand gen. Remember I said lead gen is you are inviting them into your sales process and trying to persuade them or convince them to buy now. Demand gen is they go through awareness, consideration to generate curiosity to a point where they are going to demand readiness. Some people in the industry call it demand capture. But at that point, the potential buyer is inviting you into their process to buy now. And that could be in the term of subscribing, a demo, a free trial, or whatever it is that you do, or even a salesperson. Some people still are looking to talk to salespeople, but like Mary said, it's about at the right time. You're still generating a lead, but it's a lead at the right time, which is during demand readiness. Okay. So the other things about,
I was just going to say, Peter, the distinction, in lead gen, it's creating a lead that you want to sell. In demand gen, it's creating a lead who is wanting to buy.
Very good.
Very different distinction.
Totally different. And guys, and again, if you start really sitting back and thinking about how you buy, that's exactly how you buy, is through demand gen, not through lead gen. No, and everybody's BS meter. I even have people on LinkedIn when I send them, pretty straightforward, heartfelt, not pitching. They're going, I think you're trying to sell me something. See, people are at an all-time. This is because, like Jim said, the robocalls, all the stuff going on. We are as paranoid as heck now because we get blasted because technology has made it easy.
We're almost paranoid, Peter, to even accept connection requests. Because sometimes we may have some mutual connections, but it might be that our mutual connection regrets that they connected.
Yeah.
And so we connect, and then the next thing is, like you talked about, or even like Mark Schaefer talked about. I have people, it's obvious they haven't looked at my profile when they start saying, hey, I want to talk to you about your HR or your benefits packages. It's like, I'm a solopreneur right now. I don't have that need, and I've never posted anywhere in any of my socials that I'm looking for that. So why do that? Or even sometimes people are like, hey, do you need help with video? It's like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Jim. And so here's the other things now about why is demand gen the relationship economy? So guys, think about how you buy, because how you buy is how your potential buyers are buying. So we go through research, but not everybody goes through research the same way, right? So your content, this is where Relatable really can help you, because we allow to create interactive, engaging videos that are personal, choose your own adventure, and people can go through. So for example, Jim, you are an affiliate, you do, like, I remember your mic example. Jim's going to give you an example about how people maybe have different priorities when they choose a mic. So can you speak to that, Jim?
Yeah. So as an example, I have recently received a wireless microphone from Shure called the Move Mic, and it's got a distance of up to 100 feet. And so why not actually show people the different distances and if there is a difference in sound or whatever? Because maybe somebody's like, I'm not going to talk at 25 feet or 5 feet. I need something where I'm 50 feet away from the camera. So instead of making them watch my video for who knows however many minutes as I'm talking about that, why not give them the choice? Say, I want to see how this, performs at what I need, and then get right to it. And if they like that, it meets their needs. Now they can go that next step of, making the purchase, or maybe at least now having a way to compare, right? Maybe you want to compare even microphones that all claim to do similar things. But I think, and we've kind of talked about this, YouTube has thought about some things, and we are able to do this in Relatable, and so we'll call it chapters. So I can take you to a point in time in the video that gets to your demand need, as opposed to making you sit there and watch something for who knows how long, because you maybe you already know it. And so that's, I think, one of the powerful things is that right up front we can tell you, here's the choices, because how many times do you watch a video and at the end of the video you're just like, you scammed me, you didn't answer my question, I'm not going to get that time back. That's the thing that really turns people off. And I think but that's where people get caught up in, I'd rather have a bunch of high quality 2-minute watches than low quality 20-minute watches.
Yeah.
Thousands of them.
Yeah. And the other thing to add to Jim's point on this thing, think about it. In Relatable, we can set up a home menu, right? So some people may want to go, okay, I want to see how these mics, these 3 mics perform at X distance. Somebody else may say, I want to see how noise cancellation is on these mics. Somebody else may say, I want to see what the unboxing is and what's all entailed with the mic. Some other people might say, what's the price? Right? And you can have all these different choices, and then they can jump right to that chapter in the video and consume that, and then return and consume some other content. Now, the relationship piece comes in is this. Let's say Jim is talking about these 3 different mics, Shure's being one of them. You picked the distances, and then you said, I want to find out more about Shure. Well, then what Jim can do is he can show you that, but he can also re-engage you back with a text or a link, an email or a link, a WhatsApp or a link, with other videos related to that Shure product that you showed inside your engagement that you were interested in. So again, that's an example of being personal and relevant and letting your potential buyer during demand gen choose their own adventure. And Relatable can do all of that for you. Okay.
We can go one step. We can go one step further, Peter. I'm sorry, because I want to add to that. That's just taking you through an adventure in the funnel, but you can also engage them right there on that same video at that time and ask. If they say, I am more interested in the noise cancellation, you can ask them a question. Where in your use of this product will this particular noise cancellation feature benefit you most? Or where in your use of this product is that noise cancellation feature really going to impact your video quality? And you get them to actually engage on the video itself to tell you that information, or choose an option that you give them. And that's more of the this is a marketing term. That is a micro commitment. That is a mini yes. That is an engagement that brings them closer into your relationship and brings them into that know, like, and trust. So not only can we re-engage with more information based on their choices, but we can actually engage them right there on the video.
That's great. And that's just another perfect example, Mary, of how this is all about demand gen. This is about you buying and your potential buyers buying all the same way. And it's about being personal and relevant. Now, here's the other thing too. We're going to get into omni-channel and stuff, like I said, later on. But personal and relevant does mean, in our world and in your world, that they get to choose their own adventure, and they're choosing things that are relevant and by priority choice to them. But you got to remember, in the world of the online digital footprint, relevant also means you can't have a 3-year-old Relatable video out there and someone comes across it and goes, wow, that's old. Are these guys even in business anymore? So you have to continue to keep your content fresh. It's very easy to create these interactive video experiences. It's very easy to bring them into your world. It's very easy to build trust and relationships with Relatable. And it's very easy to post and repost and things like that. Whether it's on your website, it's in these managed channels like social sites, or it's in third-party sites, through blog posts or podcasts or influencers, things like that. Okay. So that's demand gen. Now, if it's okay with all you guys, I'd like to jump into just a little bit learning, which is, let's talk about the first step. Remember I said we have demand awareness, we have demand consideration that builds curiosity, and then we have demand readiness or demand capture, some call it, in this demand gen relationship economy. So we're going to talk about that now, and how you do that. Okay. So all three of us are. Yeah. So the first thing that you got to consider, guys, is first you have to know, who the heck am I supposed to be speaking to? You got to know your customer, right? And I've heard, everybody I've heard out there ad nauseum, ICP, ideal customer profile. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit, but we got to back up a step, first of all, and you got to kind of know, okay, what is my target audience? And guys, look, at iProlio, which is our company, Relatable is a product of iProlio. We have wrestled with this, and we are continually wrestling with this. This is a clarity game. Over time, it gets clearer and clearer, okay? So if you think about it, and the way I've thought about it, in our world, we have services and we have products. And that, it's kind of, we talk about the total addressable audience, right? So if I look in service, I could say, well, we all know the biggies, right? There's health, there's wellness, there's relationships, and then I also add home to it because there's a lot of home type services and things like that. So for example, for Relatable, for our product, if we go into health, and Jim and Mary are working on this, Jim in the affiliate program, Mary in the partner program. Let's say in health, you have chiropractors, you have dentists, you have orthodontists. Now, just to give you an example, that's drilling down to that market, that particular target audience. Let's take chiropractors. I just went out this morning and I looked on LinkedIn, and all I did was show me chiropractors in the US. I just wanted to stay in the US. Well, I found 38,000 chiropractors I can connect with, and I can start taking them through awareness, consideration, and readiness. Okay. In the product space, right? I look at this, we looked at it in Relatable. We have software, we have consumer electronics, and we have clothing. So we're in software, right? So if we're looking at who could we help that are software company owners, like SaaS founders, there's a bunch of them, but I just picked three to keep it simple: video, AI, and marketing automation. Well, in marketing automation, I went and looked up that this morning. There's 152,000 just in the US of people that have the title with marketing automation that I now need to do more research, all three of us here. But that is how you go about it. It's not hard to do. You just have to go say, okay, where are we going to put our flag on the mountain, and this is where we're going to start, right? So we've chosen chiropractors as one. That's why Jim and Mary are working with some chiropractors to bring them in, so we can show them exactly how do you use Relatable in a relationship economy to go through to create this demand awareness and create this trust and build relationships to get to this point where they are demand ready to buy. Okay. Any comments or additions on that, guys?
Well, that's trying to discover or drill down to your ideal customer, or
That's
your, yeah, that to find out who that person is you want to serve. The next thing you have to do then is, how do I make them aware that I exist? So I know we're going to talk about that as well, but that's part of it. And I think with what we talked about before, and what we've been doing since the beginning of Relatable, Peter, is really finding out who we are first, and what we believe in, and where we stand, and how we want to contribute to this movement that we're trying to create. So that's the first thing you need to do.
That's our unique point of view. Yes.
That is it.
That's coming here in our training. So
that's it. Yeah. So this is really just discovering who you want to serve and drilling down to that person. Yeah. So that, just Mary, to identify.
I guess, because the next thing I have in my notes is pain points. And I know, you and I have talked about this extensively. So maybe you could share maybe 3 different pain points that we discovered that says, this is the pain points that our particular potential buyers in our target audience has.
Yeah. And so this goes across the board, no matter whether you're a chiropractor or a home improvement person or you're a coach. The pain points that we've already talked about earlier in this conversation are all around diminishing returns and diminishing ability to not just reach your audience, but actually engage your audience, and basically it becoming an algorithm zombie, as I've talked about it before. But the pain point itself is lower leads, lower sales, diminishing reputation, not no like and trust is going down the tube. All those things are things we're experiencing. Those are our pain points for all of us trying to grow our businesses. And what I look at is that's pain island. That's where we are right now. And some of us experience that in more depth than others. Some of you are saying, no, I'm not doing that. I'm fine. I'm totally fine with 25% of my emails being open and only 1% or less clicking through because I'm making good money with that. Great. You are not in a demand curious or demand ready state. That's great. You keep doing what you're doing. But there are others out there who've been on that hamster wheel for quite a while. And not only is it not going well, it is tanking. So that is a pain point.
And they're scared. I've talked to a lot of CEOs that say, this is kind of scaring me because this is not working like it used to, and I don't know what to do.
Exactly. And so then that's pain island. That's right now where they are, and it is painful. And then we're going to look at, we have a bridge and the relatable product, or if you are looking at your solution for your customers, you are that bridge to get them over to what we call bliss island. And that's where that problem is gone. You now have exactly what you need. You are building the relationships and trust, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, that's the pain point that we're working on. Did I miss anything?
No, that's good. There's other ones we know. The funny thing is we can talk about target audiences, but it seems to me from thinking about this and talking to a lot of business owners, they all have the same pains. It's like they're stuck on social, it's rented land. They're doing emails and funnels. It doesn't fit the way customers are buying. I know me from my own personal experience. I owned a wellness center for a while with my partner, and the cost per click on Google, the statistics show it's gone up 90% year over year for 5 years. It priced me right out. I couldn't afford it anymore to bring in people to do massages and wellness and infrared. So, and we've talked about this already. Audience trust is at an all-time low. If you think you're going to be able to pick up the phone and cold call people, have fun with that. Let's see how far that gets you these days. Jim brought that up, right? Now, let's move in for the sake, because we're at 38 minutes. So let's talk about ideal customer profile. So ideal customer profile, guys. And again, these are all things, again, we've had to apply. We've all three of us have, in our small band of pirates here, we've had to learn too as well. Mary probably knows a lot more about this than I do, but I just look at it, try to keep things simple. An ideal customer profile is not necessarily your individual buyer. It's the companies that you're looking for. Okay. So you got to look at company size, the revenue, the employees. This is why Mary and I had this discussion the other day. It says, we're probably better going off after companies that are not necessarily one solopreneur, that are a little bit bigger, right? So for example, we can go, if you go into service and home. In home, you got HVAC companies, electrical, plumbing. Now, in this particular case, we have a really great use case on how they could use Relatable to build relationships and keep the relationship easy to keep the customers loyal to that business. Okay. And we're going to get into that's in consideration. That's our next one coming up 2 weeks from now, into how do you create these use cases. And we're going to show you some. Okay. But HVAC companies, we're looking for companies that are making $500K or more a year in revenue. They typically, there's about 46,000 of them in the US alone. We got the top states. We know that they average about 5+ employees, but most importantly, we know they spend about 7 to 10% of their revenue on marketing. So that's about 40 to 50K a year. Now, our Relatable, depending on the amount that they want to use it, it's $49, $199, $199, or $399. So it's perfectly affordable to that size of HVAC business. And when we show them the exact use case that they can do, not only to get new potential buyers or customers, but also keep the ones they have, it's a no-brainer for them, right? So this is an example of an ICP. Anything else you guys want to add there?
So add the, not just necessarily with the ICP, but add the demand awareness idea. Now that we've got our ideal customer, then how are we going to make that particular customer aware of what Relatable can do for them based on the pain that we think they're having, which is diminishing return on their ads. So then that's where Relatable comes in to actually show how are we going to make them aware? What are the channels? Where are we going to go? So that's what we'll talk about next.
And we'll talk about that. That's coming up in a future one. But if you notice what I said, there's almost 46,000 just in the US alone. We know exactly where states, where they're at. Guys, all I did is I went up on the free version of LinkedIn and looked this up. It's not hard to do. You can connect with all these HVAC owners or coaches or consultants or whatever. It's pretty, and I do this all the time. I do about 20 a day, by the way. That's kind of a rule of thumb if you're in a free account. Okay. Now, buyer persona is a little different. So buyer persona is about, okay, you know the companies you want to go after, but who in the company do you want to go after? Are you going after the CMO? Are you going after the founder, CEO? Are you going after the social media person? Where are you going, right? So we also looked, and Mary's done a lot of research on this, because demand gen's been around for a while. The relationship economy, we are all buying this. We've done this for a few years now, but we are, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, we are a non-obvious solution to an obvious problem. So there's a thing called product adoption curves, and it kind of looks like a bell-shaped curve. But basically, at the very early stages in a company like ours, we are speaking to innovators and early adopters, okay? Innovators are 3% of the market. They are adventurous. They're risk tolerant. They're, to the point where it's like, if you got a couple bugs in there, they don't care because they see the vision of what you're trying to do and they want to jump on with you. They're tech savvy. They're open to new ideas, and they're typically social influencers. So for us, if you were to look at titles of innovators, it's solopreneurs, people in digital that are digital marketing strategists, founders, innovation consultants. In fact, I looked up innovation consultants on LinkedIn. Again, in the US, there's 16,000 of them. Those are people that we want to talk to because they're in the innovation part of that curve. Now, the next step is early adopters. We also fit that too, okay? These are people, there's about 14% of them in the market. They're opinion leaders. They're tech enthusiasts. They are value seekers. So they're, whereas an innovator, they're just looking. They're like, I want the newest thing. Can I jump on this? Can I take advantage of this? Can this help propel me? Where these guys are looking more, they're doing more consideration. So early adopters are more considerers. They're looking for more value, right? They're socially connected. So a type of person as an early adopter for us would be community managers, social media managers, futurist bloggers, or growth hackers. Okay. The company types of people. And by the way, you can look those up on LinkedIn too, and it will give you the number of people and the people that are up there. And, for us, that's who we're going after, right? That kind of thing. And then after that, there's early majority, late majority, and laggers. If you look at probably like automobiles, they're in the laggers category. Been around for over 100 years. We all use them. They're ubiquitous, If you look at Tesla is probably in the early majority to late majority. There's a lot of Teslas out there, right? They were a few years ago an innovator, early adopter, but now they're more mainstream. So just to give you an idea there. So when you go into the buyer persona too, the other things to consider, and again, you're listening to all this, you can review this again. And I don't know, maybe we should put out a little bit of a paper or something on people so they have this as a checklist to go through. That might be helpful. But the other thing is you got to look at in the buyer persona, what goals do they have? What challenges are they facing? Mary talked about the challenges and the pains. Ask, why were they attracted to you? What is it? We have to ask ourselves, why would somebody be attracted to wanting to use Relatable? What would that be? Right? Why would they look at us as a solution? And then, how it's like Mary said, you could talk about this. We're going to talk about the profile here in just a second, but or the unique point of view. But you have to always tie it into what are we solving in their problems, not what we think. we're solving? What are we actually, how are we helping them? The focus always should be on them. Because like Mary always says, they don't give a crap about us. They care about their own problems, right?
Yep.
So anything to add there? Are we good?
No, that's awesome.
Okay. So at 45 minutes, Jim, you got anything or got to keep rolling?
Yeah, no, I think it's I think that's important because you were like, well, why would people use this? I mean, so we could really use any platform as an example, right? They all have, we'll call it their limitations on polling, right?
Yeah.
Because they'll either say you can only have so many choices, but the other piece of that is it's not interactive in the sense that you pick the choice and the person that created the poll at some point gets that information. But as an example, last week I did a poll about an event I was at. It's like, how many people do you think we helped? And I, got the different answers. And then I told them what the answer was. And then I told them how they could get involved. And so it's kind of that same thing. You could create this poll, but I'm talking to you, right? It goes back to where the power of video, right? If you had the CEO or CMO of a company actually doing the video and talking to you, I think is much more impactful than just reading a text post. And so I think that's one thing where I've seen, that's maybe where you start getting into it. But I think you hit on something earlier too, is this idea of like, oh, I just post, throw something on social. If it sticks, great. I'll run ads and maybe you get more people. This is about building relationships. That's where we're different. We're not, sure, you can use this in a way socially and it adds some things that you just can't do any other way in the marketplace right now. So I think that's some of the things that, like if you're building demand, like even by doing these interactive polls, not only can you get an answer, but then you can connect with that person and start to build a relationship because maybe they become a part of your community. Maybe they, help you solve your problem, whether it's fundraising for a nonprofit or things like that.
Yeah. Those are all great points. And by the way, just as a side note, I believe we're first in the world. Jim was just talking about man on the street. He went out and he used Relatable and was interviewing people. We built this to be so you can build and you can view on your phone. So it's basically anytime, anywhere. You can do these relatables whenever they hit you. You don't have to sit at a desktop like all the other interactives. You can do it on your desktop. You can do it on any device. You can do it on a tablet, but we did build it for a phone so that you could use it wherever you're at. And most of the world is on their phones anyway. Okay. All right. Now we're going to get into, so that's the first part of setting up demand awareness. You got to know your target audience, your ICP, your buyer persona, all those kinds of things. You got to know who in the heck you're going to speak to here, right? And what are their pain points? How are we going to speak to their pain points? Now, the next thing is, and if you followed me and Mary and Jim, you're seeing out there all the time, you have to create your uniqueness. So we talked about this in the previous one. If you didn't catch our digital series, it's over on Jim's page and you can get that. We talked about how do you create a new category? How do you be different, right? And from there, you're creating your unique point of view and your point of view story. And that has to get out to everyone because guys, if you, I don't care what you are, there's a lot of others that are what you are. We have a lot of SaaS companies that are what we are. So it's like when people are going through research for demand awareness and consideration, they're going to look for, okay, well, how are you unique? Because guys, think about it. We all know this to be true. No matter where you shop, if everything being equal, what are you going to do? Do the cheapest price because It's like, well, I can't see there's any difference. So I'm just going to go for the cheapest price because it's all the same, So in category design, and how do you create your uniqueness? I talked about this the last couple of weeks ago when we did this. Our category is interactive video relationships. We don't just do interactive video. We help develop relationships by reconnecting where they pause watching or re-engaging by sending them other video content based on what they chose in their answers and actions to nurture, like Mary said, and build that relationship, right? Build that trust. That's part of demand gen. Okay. So there's 4 different types of ways to think about categories. I'm not going to, because we're at 50 minutes, I'm going to get the end to everyone. But basically, We decided to choose a non-obvious solution to an obvious problem. And the obvious problems were the pain points Mary talked about, where people are just having troubles and it's not working. Lead gen is crumbling, right? So, and the other obvious thing is everybody's using video, right? We're all watching and listening. So that's an obvious, the obvious problem. The non-obvious solution was relatable. How do we create something that builds trust, builds relationships over time, like Jim was talking about? Okay. Now, the next step is you have to sit there and think and go, okay, now in my point of view, what do I stand for? What do I stand against? And if you don't have some haters, you got to go back to the drawing board and you got to really, I take on some of these guys. They don't like it. I talk about email marketing now. I'm against it. And I see these people, they're trying to be polite on LinkedIn because there's another bunch of professionals, but I see them wincing because they're going, God, this guy's a nutcase. But I'm telling you guys, Mary talked about it, whether 20, 25%, 1% to 2%, those numbers don't lie, right? So to give you an idea for Relatable, here's what we stand against. Status quo content. We are always striving to get you to think. In fact, Christopher Lochhead, I love his quote, Mary does too. The best thing about thinking is thinking about thinking, right? It's like, get people to think. Don't just go blast out how I did $600,000 and here's my marketing playbook, blah, 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 blah. That's all it is. And yeah, that might be interesting for this moment, but at the end of the day, how's that really going to make you stand out, right? Email as a marketing tool, stand against that. Focus on customers as wallets. That's funnels. That's why we're against that. Asking before you give. That's why we have the partner program. Mary helps you out. We have a partner program that's free of charge. In 2 weeks, she will get you up and running. Free demo account. And not being relatable and authentic. Okay. What we stand for is relationships over content creation, community building. Fans come first. Prioritize impact. That's what we're trying to do. Prioritize impact over income. Yes, we're a business. Yes, we have to pay our bills. Yes, we want to make money, but we also want to create impact. We want you guys to really create impact in your marketplace. Focus on long-term gains, never give up, and reputation is everything, right? So we're always, if there's something, look, there is no business out there that I've ever had or any of you guys out there ever had where mistakes don't happen. But it's what do you do with it? How do you deal with the mistake after it happens? How do you make it right? Okay. So that's your unique point of view. You get that down, what you stand for and stand against, and then you write that into a point of view story. And that story goes omni-channel. It's on your website. We talk about future-proof your business, right? That is part of our point of view story. If you see our website, I talk about future-proof your business. We talk about it in our posts in omni-channel. We talk about it in third-party sites too, in podcasts. Mary's been on some podcasts. She's talked about this and our point of view and why it's different. And it resonates with all you guys because, look, this is like the emperor has no clothes. We all know it's true, but yet everybody's going, yeah, well, if I stick my head in the sand a little longer, maybe it'll go away. It ain't going to go away. We are in a demand gen world because how you buy is how all your potential buyers are buying as well, okay? Then the last piece of this is share your change of perspective. Okay. Now, change of perspective is looking at things from a different way. I'll give you an example. I wrote a post a few weeks back. I don't know if you guys all know the show Married at First Sight. My girlfriend watched it. She loves this show. This is how, strangers come together and they get married. And then they have this 8-week thing and most of them fall apart. So, but the point I was making with that show, Married at First Sight, is the change of perspective in you can't go right to strangers and develop a relationship. That takes time. I was making the example of if you're on social, not only is it on rented land, but you only can do awareness, connection, and engagement. But relationships have to have nurture, trust, respect, and then affinity. Because like Mary said, we do business and we've done this forever with people we like, know, and trust. And that's always going to be that way. No matter how much AI is in the world or robots, we are still going to do business with people we like, know, and trust. So that's really the key to this. in recap is you got to know your target audience, know your ideal customer profile, know your buyer persona, but then you need to go into knowing knowing your unique point of view, what you stand for and stand against, write your POV story. I can share mine if you guys want it, and maybe Jim can get that out to all you guys. And then what are your change of perspectives? And guys, that's got to be in everything. It's got to be on you. We're going to talk about this 2 weeks from now in the demand gen series. It's got to be in your website. And we're rethinking our website now and constant continuous improvement. It's got to be in all your social posts. It's got to be in all your managed channels, and it's got to be in all your third-party channels. Like if you go on podcast shows, you have to speak to this, because that's what gets people to go, wow, I've never thought about it that way before. It's like when I brought up a long time ago, if you're doing Google SEO, you're paying somebody, because all the algorithms are always changing, to get to compete with 9 other people on page 1. How's that working for you? Anyway, any other comments, guys? Because I know we're getting near the end of the hour.
I just love this. It fits my personality so much. I have no problem being for or against. I have no problem with people not resonating with what I say, not because I don't like people or I don't care, but because I've always believed that I would rather have a small group of people who are white hot, passionate about the same thing I'm passionate about, rather than a huge group of people who are just lukewarm. Because I'm not lukewarm. Yeah. So that part of it, and the only way you can do that, unless you want to just follow the whole social media guru concept, which is vanilla, no spice, no attention other than what everybody says you should do, or doing it the way social media tells you to do. If that's you, go for it, but you're going to be in a sea of everyone.
Yeah.
If you want to be in your own little place and attract people who are like you, then you have to stand against, have a unique point of view, and communicate it clearly. Yeah. And that's exactly.
And you'll attract the people that resonate with that. Exactly.
That's it. That's demand. That's creating demand. The way I look at the word demand is you allow yourself to be who you are, and you communicate that clearly, and then people demand your products. Yeah. Rather than you trying to sell and make them buy something. They actually come to you and go, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I want. How many conversations have we had? They've already researched all the things that we do, and they come to us and say, I need you to do this, and this. We don't need to have a sales call. How much is it going to cost? Let's go. Mm-hmm. They're ready. They demand you.
Yeah. Jim, I want to make sure we wrap up too about how people, because I know we have our affiliate program, we have our partner program, and if they want to book a call like with Mary on a demo, maybe how do they do that?
Yeah, so in the comments I've dropped the link, but also if you're watching on your desktop right now, you can actually scan this QR code and it'll take you to the Relatable site. You can start out with a demo account. Mary's going to drop her contact info into the chat so you can connect with her if you're interested in the partner program that Peter mentioned earlier. And so, and that's the other thing. This is your, if we'll call it your normal QR code, but you can actually use QR codes with Relatables, so that we could have actually made that QR code a video that would launch in Relatable and get the ball rolling. So that's something to consider. Even if you're just a YouTuber, you could have QR codes in your YouTube videos that would allow you to build those relationships. But
and future-proof your business, own your audience. Guys, just to wrap up from my standpoint is I can't, this is something that has been, I don't know, maybe I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I'll tell you what, this thing hit me like a ton of bricks a while back. And if you look at the behavior, I just think about, what is it I do? And if I'm doing it, I'm sure everybody else is doing it. And that's true. And this is why Gartner said 75% what a seller-free experience. People want to do their own research. This is why, and again, we'll get into this hybrid. How do you transition or transform from lead gen to demand gen? But we are all doing demand gen. And like Mary said, they will come to you. This is about, like I said at the very beginning, How do you get a predictable flow of potential buyers that are ready to buy that will invite you into their buying process? That's where things are at. They're not going, they're at right now. So you have to really look at what you're doing with your email marketing and your cold outreach and your funnels, and really kind of sit there and go, is this really the way my potential buyers really want to buy anymore? Or do I have to transition over to something like this? But most importantly, transition to build relationships, to build trust, to build awareness, because you just got a customer, but now what? And we're going to talk about that in future digital series. How do you create these customers, help them to become loyal, and turn them into raving fans? And Relatable can help you do that as well. So that's my last comments for today.
All right.
Have a great week, everybody.
Yep.
Have a great weekend.
See y'all in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.